Verses 8 to 12. He was ordered to dress himself immediately, and follow the angel, and he did so. v. 8-9. When Peter was awake he knew not what to do but as the angel directed him. He must gird himself, for those that slept in their clothes ungirded themselves, so that they had nothing to do, when they got up, but to fasten their girdles. He must bind on his sandals, that he might be fit to walk. Those whose bonds are loosed by the power of divine grace must have their feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. He must cast his garments about him, and come away as he was, and follow the angel, and he might go with a great deal of courage and cheerfulness who had a messenger from heaven for his guide and guard. He went out, and followed him. Those who are delivered out of a spiritual imprisonment must follow their deliverer, as Israel when they went out of the house of bondage did. They went out, not knowing whither they went, but whom they followed. Now it is said, when Peter went out after the angel, he knew not that it was true which was done by the angel, that it was really a matter of fact, but thought he saw a vision, and, if he did, it was not the first he had seen, but by this it appears that a heavenly vision was so plain, and carried so much of its own evidence along with it, that it was difficult to distinguish between what was done in fact and what was done in vision. When the Lord brought back the captivity of his people we were like those that dream. Peter was so. He thought the news was too good to be true. He was led safely by the angel out of danger. v. 10. Guards were kept at one pass and at another, which they were to make their way through when they were out of the prison, and they did so without any opposition, nay, for aught that appears, without any discovery. Either their eyes were closed, or their hands were tied, or their hearts failed them. So it was that the angel and Peter safely passed the first and second ward. Those watchmen represented the watchmen of the Jewish church, on whom God had poured out a spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see and ears that they should not hear. Rom 11:8. His watchmen are blind, sleeping, lying down, and loving to slumber. But still there is an iron gate, after all, that will stop them, and, if the guards can but recover themselves, there they may recover their prisoner, as Pharaoh hoped to retake Israel at the Red Sea. However, up to that gate they march, and, like the Red Sea before Israel, it opened to them. They did not so much as put a hand to it, but it opened of its own accord, by an invisible power, and thus was fulfilled in the letter what was figuratively promised to Cyrus, Isa 45:1, 2 I will open before him the two-leaved gates, will break in pieces the gates of brass, and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And probably the iron gate shut again of itself, that none of the guards might pursue Peter. Note, when God will work salvation for his people, no difficulties in their way are insuperable, but even gates of iron are made to open of their own accord. This iron gate led him into the city out of the castle or tower, whether within the gates of the city or without is not certain, so that, when they were through this, they were got into the street. This deliverance of Peter represents to us our redemption by Christ, which is often spoken of as the setting of prisoners free, not only the proclaiming of liberty to the captives, but the bringing of them out of the prison house. The application of the redemption in the conversion of souls is the sending forth of the prisoners, by the blood of the covenant, out of the pit wherein is no water. Zech 9:11. The grace of God, like this angel of the Lord, brings light first into the prison, by the opening of the understanding, smites the sleeping sinner on the side by the awakening of the conscience, causes the chains to fall off from the hands by the renewing of the will, and then gives the word of command, gird thyself, and follow me. Difficulties are to be passed through, and the opposition of Satan and his instruments, a first and second ward, an untoward generation, from which we are concerned to save ourselves, and we shall be saved by the grace of God, if we put ourselves under the divine conduct. And at length the iron gate shall be opened to us, to enter into the New Jerusalem, where we shall be perfectly freed from all the marks of our captivity, and brought into the glorious liberty of the children of God. When this was done, the angel departed from him, and left him to himself. He was out of danger from his enemies, and needed no guard. He knew where he was, and how to find out his friends, and needed no guide, and therefore his heavenly guard and guide bids him farewell. Note, miracles are not to be expected when ordinary means are to be used. When Peter has now no more wards to pass, nor iron gates to get through, he needs only the ordinary invisible ministration of the angels, who encamp round about those that fear God, and deliver them. Having seen how his deliverance was magnified, we are next to see how it was manifested both to himself and others, and how, being made great, it was made known. We are here told how Peter came to himself, and so came himself to the knowledge of it, v. 11. So many strange and surprising things coming together upon a man just awoke out of sleep put him for the present into some confusion, so that he knew not where he was, nor what he did, nor whether it was fancy or fact. But at length Peter came to himself, was thoroughly awake, and found that it was not a dream, but a real thing. Now I know of a surety, now I know although es truly, now I know that it is truth, and not an illusion of the fancy. Now I am well satisfied concerning it that the Lord Jesus hath sent his angel, for angels are subject to him and go on his errands, and by him hath delivered me out of the hands of Herod, who thought he had me fast, and so hath disappointed all the expectation of the people of the Jews, who doubted not to see Peter cut off the next day, and hoped it was the one neck of Christianity, in which it would all be struck off at one blow. For this reason it was a cause of great expectation, among not only the common people, but the great people of the Jews. Peter, when he recollected himself, perceived of a truth what great things God had done for him, which at first he could not believe for joy. Thus souls who are delivered out of a spiritual bondage are not at first aware what God has wrought in them. Many have the truth of grace that want the evidence of it. They are questioning whether there be indeed this change wrought in them, or whether they have not been all this while in a dream. But when the Comforter comes, whom the Father will send sooner or later, he will let them know of a surety what a blessed change is wrought in them, and what a happy state they are brought into. How Peter came to his friends, and brought the knowledge of it to them. Here is a particular account of this, and it is very interesting. He considered the thing, v. 12, considered how imminent his danger was, how great his deliverance, and now what has he to do? What improvement must he make of this deliverance? What must he do next? God's providence leaves room for the use of our prudence, and, though he has undertaken to perform in perfect what he has begun, yet he expects we should consider the thing. He went directly to a friend's house, which, it is likely, lay near to the place where he was. It was the house of Mary, a sister of Barnabas, and mother of John Mark, whose house, it should seem, was frequently made use of for the private meeting of the disciples, either because it lay obscure, or because she was more forward than others were to open her doors to them, and, no doubt, it was, like the house of Obed-Edom, blessed for the ark's sake. A church in the house makes it a little sanctuary.